It's really interesting to think about how much that has changed, because before, especially like when I think about early TikTok, is like you could post some of our early videos, they would get a couple 100,000 views and they didn't even seem that polished. But now it's like you really have to grab the attention right away, and it's just a different place. And I feel like all those platforms are always changing, and you never really know what's gonna work on a given basis.
It's crazy. I've been in this industry for a long time, so I've seen a lot of evolution. And I think back to like when I first started, it was very much like TV and print and radio, and like they didn't even want me in the room. I was like the distant cousin, and there was this whole belief that you couldn't be able to bring scale with digital, or the audiences weren't there. And it's been amazing, obviously, throughout, the last, 10, 15 years of being able to see that change dramatically. Now, when I look at like marketing, we're big believers in like social at the center of what you do.
All right, guys, welcome to the Duce Raymond Podcast. Today, I'm so excited. We're going to talk about something a little bit different than normal, and we're going to talk about marketing. I have an absolute expert in marketing. He's the executive director at Sasha Group, and what's really interesting is that about 3 years ago, when we went all in on social media, it was Mark and the Sasha Group that really pointed us in the right direction. And I'm not saying this to brag, but it's just the truth is we went from a few thousand followers to now we have over 600,000 followers across all platforms. We get over 2 million views every single week, and it's a lot has to do with what we learned from Mark and his team at the Sasha Group. So welcome, Mark Evans. Thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me, Duce. Yeah, no, your guys' story is like one of my favorite client stories, and it comes back to like you guys executed. Like,
yeah.
And that's the whole thing. If you don't execute, a plan is nothing. And so, kudos to you and the team just being able to execute against it and deliver with like, charisma and energy. Like I love your TikToks are some of my favorites. So I'm so happy
awesome
to see the success there.
Well, thank you so much. As we get into it, can you just explain like how you got into marketing and then what led you to VaynerMedia and the Sasha Group?
Yeah. I mean, I think, when I go back to my even college years, I was always drawn to marketing and really interested in the world of advertising. I think I really thought I was going to end up being like a copywriter. But like when I finished school, I think I realized like I didn't have enough. At least I thought I didn't have enough talent to be a copywriter. And so I went to kind of strategy and account service, and really, I've spent my entire career working in the New York City kind of agency landscape. And I joined Vayner almost 10 years in September. So it's been a really, really long time within the walls of Vayner, and it's been just tremendously fulfilling in terms of just like the people I've worked with, and what I've learned and what I've been able to accomplish throughout it. But I've always been drawn with, I think, being able to persuade someone to be able to do something in terms of like an action is really like kind of fulfilling. But I think also, what I really enjoy is just being able to like work with teams and being able to help take a brand to that next step, and just like having calls like whether it was like with you or other clients who are like, we did this and we saw this, and you're like, awesome, it's very like it's fun to be able to like help people and have their businesses grow or be able to see your work succeed. So I think I really enjoy that aspect of just being able to like work with teams and be able to help kind of push out smart work that helps drive business outcomes.
That's really cool. What type of, when you're talking to clients today, what type of strategies are you talking about as far as how the digital landscape is changing with the different platforms and stuff like that? Where are you kind of pushing them to direct their attention on, and what are you seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I've been in this industry for a long time, so I've seen a lot of evolution. And I think back to like when I first started, it was very much like TV and print and radio, and like they didn't even want me in the room. I was like the distant cousin, and there was this whole belief that you couldn't be able to bring scale with digital, or the audiences weren't there. And it's been amazing, obviously, throughout, the last, 10, 15 years of being able to see that change dramatically. Now, when I look at like marketing, we're big believers in like social at the center of what you do. When you think about where, culture is popping, it's happening within the social space. Where people are spending their time, it's within the social space. So for us, we're really encouraging our clients to be able to like, one, kind of understand your audiences and understand kind of where they're spending their time. Right now, when you think about a large majority of the United States, it's within TikTok, within Meta, within Google, and really and within those platforms, and really being able to have our clients be able to work with them to be able to figure out what makes the most sense of how we can activate within those platforms based upon business goals. But for us, it is about understanding kind of like platforms and culture as a way to be able to truly create a brand that's going to resonate with audiences, like create relevancy. And that's really our goal, is to be able to build relevant brands for clients. And that is done through understanding the platforms and how they operate and how people communicate on them, and how do you get the most reach out of them, and then understanding kind of what's in those pipes, if you will, around culture of what's popping for different audiences, and being able to then create content against that. And content has really become creative has become like the variable now.
Yeah.
Think about things like there's only so much you can do with media targeting at the end of the day,
Right.
And it starts becoming like, okay, how can we be able to just try out different things against these audiences to be able to see what's going to help, push them over the finish line, whether it's thinking differently about a brand or a certain kind of call to action.
It's really interesting to think about how much that has changed, because before, especially like when I think about early TikTok, is like you could post some of our early videos, they would get a couple 100,000 views and they didn't even seem that polished. But now it's like you really have to grab the attention right away, and it's just a different place. And I feel like all those platforms are always changing, and you never really know what's going to work on a given basis. It's really interesting for us because right now Instagram is the best platform. We're getting the most amount of reach, the most amount of engagement, the most amount of views. And that's something, even with Gary's content, he's like, Instagram is tough. You know what I mean? But it's like, for whatever reason, we're hitting, I think it's because we're being very consistent with things. And whatever reason, the algorithm really likes what we're putting out and how we're putting it out. When you're kind of coaching people to use platforms, talk about the importance of using the in-app features, because I don't think everybody takes advantage of that, or they want to make one video and just put the same video out to all the platforms. Can you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah. And just one, going back to your point around kind of early days of TikTok, I often say to people, I'm like, beachfront real estate only happens once. And, and it comes back to like underpriced attention. And so when you think about it, you have like more audiences versus creators that were happening on TikTok, and now it's kind of it's changed a little bit where you have more creation happening, and so it is one of those things where it's like I've looked at over the last couple of years. Yeah, it's harder to get those eyeballs. You have to be much more sophisticated in what you're thinking about in terms of like thinking about your hook, thinking about like trying different, caption copy, being able to understand, to your point, like the in-app features, being able to understand CapCut, being able to like, it's interesting when you think about like how music licensing works across TikTok and Instagram. It's not the same music libraries. And so you can't just simply take a TikTok you created with certain music and just dump it onto Instagram. Many times it's taken down for like either copyright violations or other types of, so it's really important, and there's just nuances, so I think it's really important just to be able to understand the nuances of those platforms, and being able to also understand what are those platforms pushing right now. It's like if all of a sudden IG is pushing a bunch of stickers, well, start using stickers,
Right.
because that's like they're trying to push attention to there. So I think it's really important to understand what sort of feature sets are being pushed within these platforms or formats, and then being able to lean into them. Whenever you see a platform introduce something, go do it because that's important to them. It's like when you think about like when YouTube rolled out YouTube Shorts,
Yep.
yeah, they were pushing a lot of eyeballs to that format. And so it's just, I think we really preach the importance of like understanding what's going on the platforms and then being able to like lean into the formats or tools that they're introducing because that's where they're emphasizing. And I always, say to a lot of people, I'm like, just watch my boss, Gary. Gary, whatever Gary is testing, there's always something behind it. He's a very thoughtful person in terms of thinking about content and formats. If he's testing something, go do the same because he's basically has a reason why. So pay attention to the platforms and really be able to use their platform native tools. But also, as I said, understand if they're out, they put a PR around something or they're putting highlighting on the importance of using something, go for it.
When I read Gary's book, actually what I did was I listened to it, and everybody that may have bought in Day Trading Attention, that's Gary's newest book.
Yeah.
If you listen to it, you actually get a little more because as Gary goes, he's like, okay, going off script here. And then he dives even deeper into it, which I really appreciate it. And it just cracks me up because I've consumed enough of his content where I kind of feel like I have a little relationship with him, So
yeah,
it was really cool. And just what he says, one thing that I struggled with was like, so we have one specific style of content that works for us is we do educational barbecue videos and, we'll get decent traction most of the time, especially on Instagram right now. And then it's kind of hit or miss on the other platforms depending on what the content is. But he talks a lot about is like testing different styles of content, using green screen or, making a skit or something like that. It's hard for me to like go away from our traditional, just educational barbecue video. It's like a recipe and then I give some information behind what I'm doing. What do you think about trying different styles and the pros and cons to something like that?
Yeah. I mean, it's something we do across the board for our clients to be able to like see what works and constantly being able to see where we can get more attention. So, we have clients that we're doing, videos. We're doing, we have clients right now that we've noticed right now that 1 second Instagrams are really hot. So we're doing 1 second Instagrams right now. We have clients like that we're doing carousels and doing a lot of, and so like, we try to be able to continuously try different formats. I think it's like what you're doing in terms of having a content series, we're super bullish on. I love content series. I think they're super smart. I think they can be able to help with virality. I think, if anything, I was thinking about, we had some clients that where we're doing like breaking almost things up into like short bites where it's like you get to watch the next one. It's like stopping each thing as like a cliffhanger and going to the next one. But I think it's important to be able to try formats out and being able to just like expand what can be able to work with you, like for you. So for instance, right now there is a dealership, a Chevrolet dealership in upstate New York that is doing, they have their normal car content, but two of the employees started doing basically this like office style skit, and it is so amazingly entertaining. It's like it's Mohawk Chevrolet. Check them out. It's like your TikTok handles right now. But like they have regular other types of content, but they have this running series also that's just like amazing. And so I think for brands, it's important to be able to try stuff because you might have already found success in one thing. You might find success in something else. For you, it's like maybe it's a carousel of just being able to have like your favorite dishes of the week, or or your favorite like favorite recipes. Like being able to try stuff and being able to see might just further help in terms of your success, but also just be able to like find from an algorithm standpoint
Well, talk me off the ledge of this then. So we have our regular content, barbecue education content, and this is something that Matt is concerned about. You know Matt, he was just on the call a minute ago. He's like, well, we've trained our people, like they really expect this super delicious looking barbecue and Duce explaining what it is and how to do it. Now we have podcast, and of course, you know, we want to break it up into short cuts and use it on shorts and reels and TikTok and stuff like that. Are we going to offend some people, or is that going to be an issue, or should we just not overthink it? Or what's your opinion on that?
Don't overthink it, Duce.
Yeah.
I think like, to me, it might be, this format might find you new audiences. There may be people that this gravitates more toward than maybe other styles of content. I have rarely, if all of a sudden people are like, this is horrible, I hate this, and like you were seeing that like over and over again from a pattern perspective, okay, that's one thing, but I don't know, I've really never have seen that before. Like I haven't seen audiences like revolt so much when you start potentially like introducing other types of content. And it's like, if you're into barbecue and it's like, it's coming from a place of like, you love it, and like whatever you're going to be putting out is going to be coming from a place of like love and enthusiasm. And so I think people gravitate toward that no matter what. So I think it's like, I think the biggest mistake that so many brands, restaurants, make is like they overthink these things, and they basically are like, go to a place of like worst case scenario. And it's like, you can't allow yourself to do that. Like, obviously you want to be thoughtful about it. Mm-hmm. It's like, push it out there and see what happens. Like you say, like you're not putting out something that it's not, you're not putting out something that's completely like crazy off the wall. It's like something within kind of, and so it's not, you're not going to, I don't think, offend anyone by any means. It's about doing, I think finding different ways to be able to have people connect with you, and I think experience the brand.
Let's talk a minute about Gary's new book, Day Trading Attention. I heard him say in an interview that his team was upset with him for releasing all this information, because it's like, hey, that's all our best stuff. And I know he's probably saying it tongue in cheek, but it was just funny to me. It was like, this is what, you guys are doing and training your clients to do. I mean, I just found there's so much value there, and just was like really impressed by the whole thing and how much detail he went into.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, it's really funny because I've been working for Gary for almost 10 years, as I mentioned. And I remember years and years ago, he released like a PDF, like it was like a 68-page PDF of like more or less like a blueprint of like a lot of stuff we were doing.
Yeah.
And I texted him and I'm like, dude, out of your mind? I'm like, you can put money for this. This is like, well, and he was like, nope. Like he was completely, and when you look at that book, I mean, that book, it gets into the weeds. Mm-hmm. And it is very much like, every person in our company, I'm like, we're like, you need to read this, like, and know this quite well. And mm-hmm. like, the worksheets in there, like it's very much like how it's not like this theoretical type thing. It's like, this is how you do it. And so that's what I really always appreciate about Gary, is that like he shares that knowledge, which is really, really comes from a place of like type of guy he is. Mm-hmm. And it is like, it's a blueprint of like how to build a brand in modern platforms. Like it really is. And like the way he breaks down the importance of understanding platforms, understanding culture, and understanding audiences is just like second to none. And yeah, like I know I work for him and I'm biased, but I think it is, as a guy who has spent 20 years in the marketing space, I can tell you it is a very useful book that I think anyone from a Fortune 500 marketer to a business owner, a small business owner, would appreciate.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It was very informational for me. And one thing I look in content, to my fault probably, is like it's reaffirming what I know and what we're doing, and it's like giving me more motivation. Like, yes, keep going. We're doing the right things, and then also thinks about so many things like LinkedIn is something that we really have to look into. But what was interesting about it was he was saying how you should go at it at more of a personal brand than, speaking from, Sweet Baby Ray's catering. It would be more influential coming from Duce Raymond specifically on LinkedIn. And I thought that there was a lot of interesting information there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's when I look at like founders and the way you can be able to bring to life a brand story through the lens of an entrepreneur. That stuff I think always really kills on LinkedIn, and I think it really allows to be able to open up a different side of the brand. I think for a lot of small businesses, transparency is like something that you can be able to really. The big guys can't do it. Massive companies don't necessarily have like the same stories or the same like a founder that can be able to speak about it. So being able to bring to life that type of stuff, I think it's just really impactful. And you start looking at like, okay, I'm building a personal brand on these platforms, but then I also have my brands that are on all these other platforms. Where can I grab content from like the personal brand series to be able to post within our brand stuff too, to be able to just like strengthen the overall story that we're putting out and really being able to connect with audiences.
What do you think about like different organizations working with influencers to talk about their product or their business or stuff like that? And how do you even go about that? Like if you're a small business and you want to work with this person that talks about restaurants, is it just a matter of DMing them? How do you know how much to pay them? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I oftentimes, I think first of all, I say to every brand, I'm like, look into your DMs. Look and see who's reaching out to you, because you'll be surprised. Like many times, I've had many clients I've worked on where it's like all of a sudden you're like, wow, this person's a celebrity, or this person is a really well-known person who basically DM'd or tagged you in something because they love you. And that's the way you can be like, I think that's always the first part. I'm always like, see who already loves your brand and wants to work with you. And I said, there's a lot of people that genuinely will DM brands and be like, I love you guys. And then all of a sudden, I usually say like, okay, let's go look at them. Like look at the content they're creating. Look like where are they in the same region we are? Are they, what type of audiences they have? And many times, a lot of those brands, if you have a product, you can be able just to be like, hey, I'm going to send you a bunch of product, and they'll create content for you because like they're so stoked about your brand and the fact that you gave them some love. Mm-hmm. Like you don't even have to necessarily compensate them, from a dollar perspective. And so many times when you're like, hey, we're just rolling out this product, would love your POV on it, like as a dedicated fan, and sending them like, hey, here's a couple bottles of our newest barbecue sauce. Like I mean, like people, they're human beings, like I've had that happen to me, and I'm like so through the roof about it,
Yeah.
And so many times you don't even have to go down the compensation standpoint, because like you can just be able to use product as a way. And that's a thing we also do for a lot of we call it surprise and delight, where when you have people who, for instance, make a comment on one of our posts and we're like, that person's awesome. Like, and we basically DM them. We're like, we love that comment. We're going to send, like, give us your address. We're going to send you some product, and
just
like,
so you guys know, Gary and the Sasha Group lives by that. And when we hired them to do something, we got really cool personalized Cutco knives sent that I use almost every day. It's still in my knife block. I take it out, and that's something really cool. And it was totally a surprise and delight for sure.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
really
And that's
cool.
just how you build connections. But I think it's like those type of things are like always like the grassroots of how you start it. And like to me, I look at influencers like stock. I want to be able to buy them when they're underpriced and be able to ride them up, And so like
It makes a lot of sense.
I'm like, when you think about it, like, oh, I'm going to go after, an Alex Cooper, for instance, who's like on the top of the world right now, versus like, okay, who are the next, women that are playing in that space, or like looking at like who are the up and comers. And so, it's always important. Yeah. Like who's tagging you and who's DMing you, start there. But then I think if there are influencers that you're like, I love and we want to work with them, I think it's them being able to reach out to them. And, sometimes, depending on if they are a professional influencer, if you will, like they'll have like rates are, based upon.
They'll have something established already.
They'll have something established. If it's not, you can be able to work with them. And then there's also things where you can be able to set up programs like where you're like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you a vanity URL or some sort of way we can measure success. And if we see a pop in sales or whatever agreed KPI, we'll give you a performance bonus tied to that, and being able to do stuff like that with them where you start getting into like actual sales driving techniques and really being able to have someone like put a skin in the game in terms of like, we can work together. And it's like, if you help us drive, more top line, we're happy to share with you in that growth.
A lot of, as running a business, and a lot of things are revolved around the data. Like, can you show how this converted and stuff like that? And the water gets really murky with social media because it's really hard. Something I explain to people is like, okay, it's a long road because they might have seen a TikTok, maybe they saw Instagram Reel, but maybe they saw me wearing a Sweet Baby Ray shirt at the gym, and they saw one of our trucks drive by.
Yep.
And when they finally decide they need catering, they go to Google and they search Sweet Baby Ray's catering, and then Google gets the credit on our little form that we have them fill them out. And it's such a hard road to see like what's actually converting. Is there any advice you give to your clients, or how do you guys really think about like what's converting on social and what isn't? What are some interesting perspectives on that point of view?
Yeah, I mean, last click attribution is definitely flawed in my humble opinion.
Yeah,
as you said, it is most time it is multiple touch points that someone is going through, or they end up going down a kind of a final kind of decision basis. From a social perspective, I try to keep things really simple. It's like, how many people did you reach, and did they like it? So it's like reach and engagement. And you start being able to measure your content on a simple way like that, where you're basically kind of taking quantitative measures there, and then certainly being able to look at it from a qualitative standpoint of like, okay, I might have had a lot of engagement. Do people like it? Like, were they basically like, we love this, or were they like, this was the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life?
Yeah, you got so many views because they absolutely hated it.
Exactly. And you want to be able to make sure that you have a little bit of a layer of qualitative in there. So it's like, from an organic standpoint, being able to look at those like very simple measures. But then I think it is being able to like, once you have kind of your total machine going, it's like looking at your Google Analytics, looking at like, are you seeing more site traffic? Are you seeing more conversion? From a store perspective, are you seeing more foot traffic? And being able like, and you said it's not going to happen overnight, but you start being able to like just look at the total story. It's like, oh, well, you know what? The amount of impressions we're delivering over the course of the last 6 months has increased. And you know what? Our search traffic has also increased. Okay, like you start being able to say like that makes sense, And so I think it's definitely, I don't ever think there's one silver bullet in marketing,
right,
in terms of like do this and all of a sudden everything is going to be taken care of. But I think being an objective person in terms of marketing and looking at your data across your organic, your paid, your store data, and being able to see, if we're doing, what are the changes or what are the things that we've done, and how has it impacted, our bottom line at the end of the day. But it's not like an overnight type thing where all of a sudden, we did 5 TikToks and we saw more dollars. Like, that's probably not going to happen.
Probably not.
I'm yeah. I mean, like there are the rare instances of like the viral things that pop and everyone runs to a store, but like more times than not, it's not going to be the case.
The closest thing we've seen to that actually happened just over this past 4th of July, where we had posted on the 3rd of July a video that we've used before. It's done well for us before. It's an Alabama chicken where I show the whole recipe and use the Alabama sauce and the poultry rub seasoning.
Yep.
We posted that on the 3rd of July. That weekend, we got 30 orders directly from that post through our Spotify or Shopify account. And I mean, that's like 10 times more than we usually get in like 3 days, So it was like really cool to see, like, we made a post, they went and converted, and that's like the best example. And we've been doing this for 3 years. So, but we really got focused with the Duce's Wild product specifically. We, dialed in our website, we got a Shopify account, we can start tracking things better. And we're really being able to connect some of those dots like you were talking about. It's really cool. I mean, and you can get lost in the data. And right now we're still small. Like Duce's Wild is really small. It's a small part of our business and everything like that. But it's really cool to see how social can really impact that if you hit it right. It's like everything was right. It was like the 4th of July. People were just chilling on their phones. The video went viral. I think it got almost 3 million views, and then we were seeing the orders come in. It was really cool.
But and the thing is, too, it's like sometimes I also think about it. It's like someone might see something like that, like a piece of content that went viral, and they might still come to your store, may not order that. So, for instance, I think about it like there's a diner near where I live, and they're really famous for they do these extreme like ice cream sundae type things. Like they kill it. They have one location. They kill
super
it.
Instagrammable. Like
it's like because it's like one of those things where I'm like, I can't get that at home. Like Dairy Queen isn't making that. Like that's like But I have a feeling though, it's like you go there, and like it's massively ridiculous. Like as a human being, it's a lot to probably eat. And I'm sure people go there and they're like, okay, I'm going to order some. I end up ordering something else, but they see other people ordering, or the case they may not like. It's oftentimes like the viral hit is what pull people in, but maybe they actually don't even order that. Like that's a bit of my hypothesis when I think about some of the restaurants, and what I think helps pull people in or create virality is around the thing that I can't get at home, or I think that I'm willing to get it's like, oh my gosh, I've never seen barbecue done that way. I want to go check that out, and I think like that's the big thing when I think about like the food and restaurant space is like if you can be able to bring to life like cool things from the kitchen or the bar that are just like kind of almost play in the extreme place.
Right.
And it's kind of, it's like, you have restaurants that have like, some sort of extreme, all you can, if you can finish this in a 1 hour type thing.
Yeah. Right.
Like,
the eating challenges.
Exactly. Yep. Like stuff like that. Like that's what people really love from a content perspective. And it ends up being like, that might pull someone in, but at the end of the day, they may actually not even buy it. They might buy something else. But it's like, if you can be able to find ways to just pull them in through the cool stuff that you guys are doing, whether it's like unique drops or other types of things that are like, I got to see that. I got to get off my butt in my house and go check that out.
That's interesting. For sure, we see like one of our most unique sauces is the Alabama sauce. Like everyone has a sweet tomato-based sauce. Everybody knows Sweet Baby Ray's and sauces like that. But our best-selling sauce is actually the Alabama because it's so different, and there's not a lot of people that sell it. But it's, to your point, is maybe it's like, that weirdness is getting them over to the site. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really do think it's like, there's like that type of just I don't know, just something I can't get normally if I went to a normal barbecue place or whatever. Like, and the thing is too, it's like from a visual perspective, I remember when I saw that TikTok. Mm-hmm. You're all of a sudden pouring this white sauce, and I'm like, what in God's name is that? And like that's the
awesome
thing, like that's the whole thing. I think like that's what just bringing to life that like something that's very different and like was unexpected, and I think that I'm sure has attributed to the success of that piece of content because it does look when you're sitting there pouring that out and you're like, dude, only barbecue sauce I've ever seen is tomato based and it's red.
Yeah. What else do you guys start talking about with your clients when they want to know what type of content to do? Do you really focus like on who they're trying to reach first or what they're good at, or how do you kind of like point them in the right direction when they're first getting started on producing more content for social?
Yeah, I think it always starts with like your objectives and the audiences and understanding that. And then for us, it's like, okay, let's take your audiences and really make them even tighter. We call them kind of audience cohorts, where we basically take, if you come in, you're like, oh, my people I'm targeting are 25 through 35, guys in Chicago. It's like, okay, let's put a tighter lens on that. Let's do a cohort of 25 to 30 finance bros who did the Chicago Marathon and love barbecue. Or let's do 30 to 35-year-old recent Midwest, East Coast transplants to the Midwest female.
Is the tighter cohort just to get your head around like what these people are thinking about and what they would want to see from a content perspective?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. In order to be, to me, it's like, if you want to be relevant, and that's like the holy grail for us as marketers, you have to be able to like understand the ins and outs of someone so you can be able to make something that is relevant. So like the tighter the cohort, we call that almost called cohorts with teeth. It's like it allows us to be able to create something that's going to connect with them. And the way that, the way the algorithms work within TikTok and IG, YouTube, it's like the content will find the audience. And so it's super important, for us, like we're starting with 7 to 10 cohorts right off the bat. And then we're thinking about platforms and thinking about culture, and then starting to be able to say like, oh, you know what? Right now this is like karate, the Cobra Kai series kickoff is tomorrow. Oh, maybe that will make sense for this cohort. Maybe we can do a whole thing around like viewing party for the Cobra Kai kickoff or something like that, and food, And so you start being able to like really get tight in terms of like how you can think about an audience, and that's the important thing for us. And like we think about audience cohorts, like we start with, it changes. Like we'll do 3 months of a cohort, and if it's not doing what we need to do, it's like, okay, maybe we kill that and find a new one. So it is this like,
I just had a light bulb moment with like the day trading attention. It's like almost taking advantage of that as things come up. It's like Hulk Hogan just did that whole thing where he ripped off his shirt for Trump. If you could like act on that today and make some sort of marketing piece behind that, I mean, it would be amazing,
Like that's the whole thing of like just like playing in culture. And that's the big thing is like when moments happen in culture, it's like, how can you be able to react and be able to connect with something, connect, quickly. It's like you think about like, the 6'2" finance guy, trend that was on TikTok, like, I don't know, probably two weeks ago. You started seeing brands like playing on that whole kind of like music hook or being able to use that trending audio in their stuff, and it's like, that's the whole thing. I think when you look at like TikTok, it's like, what is trending on the platform from a format perspective or a filter perspective or, an audio perspective. And, are there things you can be able to do, using it to be able to help just like make a piece of content, reach that many more audiences.
I'm still thinking about Hulk Hogan. I grew up at that time when I actually went ringside when I was like 8 years old or 9 years old and saw it was like Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, The Undertaker, and all that stuff, and that was like the coolest thing in the world to me.
Oh yeah, no, Hogan is like he's a Americana right there, And
he's
like,
still killing it too. Like whether you like Trump or not, it was still pretty cool to see him do what he did.
It was classic. Hogan knows his brand, and like he delivered perfectly on who Hogan is.
Talk about a little broadly about working at the Sasha Group and with the team that you have. What does that look like for you? Like when you get a client, do you guys have like a team meeting? Is it, what's that structure kind of look like?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a really broad spectrum of clients, and we do both consultative work, so project-based work, or we have like bigger retainer works where clients, many times the retainers, they're coming to us and they're saying, hey, I want you to do all my strategy, my creative, my media, like you're going to handle all that.
You guys will do everything.
Exactly. And then the consultative stuff, oftentimes, like what you experience, where it's like we have a client who comes in and is like, hey, listen, I'm getting tripped up in this area and I need I need your expertise here. So like we have clients that will come to us and are like, hey, I need strategy help, or I need production help, and being able to provide that, like, we'll create 100 assets for a client and then basically give it to them, and then they can be able to deploy it over the course of 2 months or a month or whatever the duration is. But for us, I think the stepping back, like any client that we work with, like, one, it's being able to make sure we understand truly what they need from a business perspective. I had a lot of phone calls and Zoom calls over my career where it starts with, hey, here's what I need. And I start talking to them more and more and more. And I'm like, you don't need that, you need this. And they're like, you're right. And, and so I think it's first properly dissecting what they need. And then we basically align on whatever sort of contract or whatever sort of things we're going to deliver. And then being able to allocate the right team for that, and
how many people do you have on your team, like your direct reports underneath you?
I mean, so I focus, my role is within like the client partnerships, side of things. So I'm like my team is basically all the people that are working directly with the clients, and then being able to pull in the creative team, media team, production, as a whole. Like Sasha Group, we're at about 100 and close to 110, I think, total people within the Sasha Group, and
that's grown a lot in the last 3 years or 4 years.
Like, yeah, I mean, when we first started, it was 30 of us. That was that was a little over 5 years ago, and so we have kind of different departments bringing different expertise, and our client partnerships team is like kind of a bit of the ringleader, kind of pulling all those services together on behalf of the client and being able to work with the client.
What do you tell people? Because like Gary preaches like so much content, like 100 pieces a day and stuff like that. So how do you talk to people about, like, okay, we're struggling to do 1 to 2 pieces of content a week? What do you tell them to say, okay, this is what you need? You need to hire another content creator. You need to hire a videographer. How much is realistic, and like, what are the next steps to getting more content out? How do you coach people to get more content out and do it in the right way? Because we already talked about how important the quality is and being concise and hitting the target correctly. So how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, well, oftentimes I think, we can be our hardest critic on our own quality of our content. And so a lot of times too, I try to really press upon clients, like, don't be so critical on, like, like you'd be like, oh, I saw this little feather here or something, that I'm like, yeah, no one's going to see that. Like by the time to record that, redo that over, it's going to be not worth it, And so I think it's like, one, not getting too caught up and too precious on everything, because you won't get anything out if you become so precious on everything. But I think also thinking about content, going back to like formats, content can be quick little text card, can be a poll, can be, hey, you know what? Like, we're big believers in going out. We recommend, like, our brands, we'll go out and we'll try to go comment on other either influencers or audiences or just even brands, their content, because that's it's a really undervalued tool for awareness building. So being able
to say that again, what were you saying?
I'm sorry. So think about this. So if you think about like someone's in the barbecue space and created a piece of content, and you go comment on that as Duce Raymond or Sweet Baby Ray's.
Yep.
And then people oftentimes will see that and then either like it. Like we've had comments get 20,
I see what you're saying now. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so you're commenting on someone else's post. We've had clients, we've gotten 20,000 plus likes on a single comment. And we've also watched, so then we also look at data of like, okay, how many people visit our profile during this time period? And one of our clients where we basically did a comment, and it was like literally like 5 words. We got 20,000 likes. We also noticed we had a 3,000% spike in visits to our profile over the course of the next 2 days versus previous 2 days just from that comment.
From the comment.
So like,
that's crazy.
So you start thinking about, like, I think too often we're looking at like, okay, I need to produce an original video and that's content. And it's like, no, that is content. But there are just a wide spectrum of things you can be able to do just to be able to get stuff out there. It's really important. It's like just swinging the bat as many times.
Just talking to you makes my mind work, like with this stuff. So one of our top liked comment is someone, for whatever reason, don't ask me why, but people think I sound like Kermit the Frog when on the videos. People comment about it all the time, and it's like one of the most liked videos on one of our viral videos. And people are like, "Oh, what's he gonna do with Miss Piggy?" And like, I'm like coming to think could be just a meme of we got to figure it out, but it's something.
A whole post, exactly. Just taking that comment and building a TikTok around that, or building exactly. And that's a thing. Like, the comments are gold mine for like we do so much reactive. We'll do like, someone, one of our clients this past week, we had a post and Ritz, the crackers, commented on it. We then created a video reply in the actual feed of the comments feed back to Ritz, but then we also took that video and made it an original post also in our feed. So, like so much, like I think too often brands get kind of tripped up. They're like, oh God, I got to sit down and figure this out myself. And it's like, just start looking at what people are saying. Or even like if there's like, for instance, like I really encourage clients to like ask questions. Like, it's almost like focus groups. Like, do you like our white sauce? Yes or no? Like, what would you prefer, white sauce or like another one? Like, you can be able to start like even like just stuff like that, like just basic stuff. And so I think like that's the biggest thing I think around content is like, don't think it's just purely like I'm gonna have to create a video every day, but thinking about like, how can I stay active? How can I be able to like, it's like we like a lot of times in the clients, I'm like, we'll spend like just like an hour on what we call our PCS, which is post content strategist, and they're basically act as kind of a community manager, and like they'll just spend an hour just going out and going through stuff that's trending and just commenting on stuff and stuff that's obviously like within relevant of our audiences, and it's like, cool, we got out today 10 comments today and also a single poll. Awesome, and you have to like, that's when you start diversifying your content and realizing, it's important just to be active.
Right. And I think that's a huge takeaway for me with the conversation is just like, every time I think about content, I'm like, okay, Matt, we got to post, another burger video or another rib video or something, but it doesn't have to be a video to be content and just to be getting in front of people. So that's a really, really interesting point, because I always think, okay, it's got to be our produced video. That's what our content is, but it doesn't have to be that all the time.
Not at all. And I think like that's the thing. Like, you'll be able to increase your barbecue like a boss videos are like nicely produced. Like, I'll tell you the time, but I'm sure you can be able to just spit out a bunch of stuff of you and Matt just sitting down and just jamming on like, what sort of fun comments did we see recently? Like, we just do a still image around that. Is there, like, just like, I think there's like fun things like, is there a poll that we want to be able to do? Is there, just a lot of like quick things you can be able to do to be able to, not, just allow yourself to get more of that content out.
Okay. Last thing before we get into actually two things. First of all, are you guys still doing the 4Ds?
We do.
That's
we do,
awesome.
Yes. And
that was such a cool experience. I'm thinking about doing that again, actually.
They've revised the curriculum on it too.
Really?
So it's tremendously useful for a lot of business owners that are doing their own content, because it really allows them to kind of just see how we're thinking and be able to take away that expertise and apply it to their own business.
It's when we did it the first time, I had like, one kind of stumbling block, and we had these 3 brands, and I was trying to like push it all into one, and like Gary in 2 seconds pointed out like, no, you need to have it separate and you have to focus on these, and he was right. And I tell that story all the time, because it's like, he's so intuitive about the whole thing. He's like, Duce, I got it. Just stop. And he was but he was right on, and we leaned into it that way, and it's worked out very, very well. So now I'm thinking about things from a personal branding situation, and I wanted to see, what his perspective would be on that. But I'm not talking to Gary. I'm talking to Mark. So what do you think? And not just from my perspective, but from another, like if you're working with different brands, how do you know when it's the right idea to lean into a personal brand? Or is it not always a, black and white thing? Is it sometimes yes, sometimes no?
Yeah, I mean, I think I always encourage any company that we're working with that has a founder, I always encourage them to be active in the social space and being able to help talk about whatever they're comfortable with. I think it's the most important thing. Like I worked with an insurance company, and the guy was like, "Hey, I'm cool about building my personal brand, but like, I also have a family that I don't really want to like have stuff exposed." And so like we basically had him create a separate kind of Instagram handle just for like kind of his public facing personal brand. He still had his Instagram for like his close friends and family. He was like, yeah, I don't really want to, like, I have small kids. I don't really want to, publish them and, put them out in the space. And so like he built something very kind of separate and focused. But I think whenever we're working with founders, I first kind of talk to them about like, tell me your story. And many times people will tell you their story and they think it's boring. And I'm like, dude, that's really awesome. So I always encourage people, I'm like, sit down with someone you don't know, or someone who can be able to like really hear kind of how you got to where you are and be able to give you like an objective opinion. Because I think too often founders are much like, no one cares about this. And you're like just from talking, you're like, no, this is actually really useful stuff. And you start being able to also understand of like, okay, where would you, based upon this, you talk a lot about like, you love entrepreneurship. Do you want to focus on like helping other entrepreneurs through your own journey? Or you pivoted from being an amateur college athlete to now starting your own business. Do you want to talk about that whole change in your life? You kind of like figure out like what are some meaningful things that they can really be able to like get into. But I think it's also then figuring out like what's the best medium for them to be able to bring this to life. Some people are very comfortable like on camera. Others like, no, I much rather prefer to write. And you're like, okay, well, start a blog or focus on LinkedIn. It's about finding like what's the best way for them to tell their story, because at the end of the day, it's like you want them to be comfortable with what they're doing, because if they are, they'll they'll build a pattern and do it. If it's something that feels, ugh, God, I got to do this again, no one needs to do it. And so it's like find something they're passionate about and find the best tool for them to bring to life that passion. And I think it always benefits, any brand.
And it makes it more doable then. If you like what you're doing and you're talking about things you like, then you're more able to do it on a consistent basis when it's not like, ooh, I got to do this again.
You'll make time for it. And I think the enthusiasm comes through, the expertise, and then you start figuring out of like, okay, where should we put, where we want to be able to bring to life some of this into brand communications or whatever the case may be. How can this help us feel different than the next barbecue sauce company or whatever the case may be.
Lastly, if someone was interested in reaching out to Sasha Group or something like that, where would they go, or what? Where do you want to send them?
Yeah, no, we have a website that you can be able to go on there, and essentially it's a very quick form aimed at being able to understand what sort of needs you have, and then basically it goes into our team, and then somebody will connect with you to be able to talk through what sort of solutions that we have within our walls that can be able to help out.
Yes. And if they come from the Duce Raymond Podcast, then we get a percentage.
Exactly.
I got to work on that.
Yeah, exactly. And always, I love being able, I have plenty of people that reach out to me directly, and I'm always cool about that. It's always good to, I love being able to talk about marketing. So I'm always
Well, this has been very helpful for me, hopefully for other people too. But Mark, I always love connecting with you, and you break things down that it's just makes sense and is simple to me. So I always appreciated that about you. And the other thing that was really cool is, we worked with Sasha Group, and then, we were done kind of with our agreement. You guys fulfilled everything, and every time I've reached out to you, you've been more than generous with your time and, set up calls and things like that. So I've always really appreciated that and thought that was really awesome and solid of you as a person.
No, thank you. Yeah, no, I said you guys are a good guy. I like, you've always been a fun one, and I love barbecue sauces. So it's definitely, I enjoy it myself. So it's really fun to be able to jam with you on stuff.
That's awesome. Okay, so how we like to close things out is with the lightning round here. So I've got a list of 10 things. You just give me your quick response to each one. You ready?
Go. Yep.
All right. Favorite pop culture icon?
Favorite pop culture icon, John Rambo.
Okay. Best barbecue in Connecticut?
It is Hoodoo Browns in Richfield, Connecticut.
Their Instagram is awesome.
I love them. I grew up in Richfield, and it's been so cool to watch them grow. And I have a $100 gift card to them. It's sitting in my kitchen that I need to use, but the challenge is they are always so busy.
Really? So
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed, in Chicago, they do this big thing called the Windy City Smokeout, and they bring barbecue people from all over, and they were actually down there. I didn't get a chance to make it down there, but I saw on their website that
Yes,
they were.
I saw them post about it. Yeah, I love their IG, and they're fun to watch.
Okay, favorite running shoe?
God, that's a tough one. I'm a very avid runner, and I have different running shoes for different occasions. I will use my best all-purpose one is the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4.
Wow. Mr. Beast?
Love what he does. I definitely, I've not bought any of his chocolate or anything, but I do, or his burgers, but I do enjoy
You didn't buy any chocolate for your kids?
I have not.
I didn't have a choice. Okay, that leads into favorite girl dad moment.
Favorite girl dad moment. I have 3 daughters, so there's definitely a lot of them. I think my favorite moments with them are always we live near the ocean. We're very big ocean people, so I think I have a lot of pictures around our house of a lot of my kids when they were small, especially kind of standing at the shoreline together and having conversations. And some of those are like some of the best like memories I have, just being able to stand in front of the waves with my daughters.
Favorite food influencer on Instagram?
Ooh.
Or TikTok. I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, I mean, present company excluded, I guess. That's a really good one. I do really, like the Hoodoo Brown guys, I really, really enjoy. And it's like their stuff. I like barbecue, and I really enjoy them. So I like them.
Okay. Most memorable social media campaign for any company that you've worked with?
I want to say I worked with Philips, the electronics company, early in my career. We did an early, this is early YouTube stuff. I want to say 06. Mm-hmm. We ended up winning Cyber Lions. We won a campaign of the year. We won a lot.
Really?
It was for their body grooming tool, and so we had a lot of fun with puns around the body. And it was the Philips body groom, and I think that was some of that was some early stuff that I really, really enjoyed and had a good time doing.
Instagram or TikTok?
Instagram.
Top business book?
I would say the first thing I really enjoyed Ogilvy on Advertising, Jack Welch's book, Straight from the Gut, I want to say. And then, of course, like I'm partial to Gary's books too.
Yeah.
He's very much. I'm not. He and I are not academics by any mean, and I just love like his practicality of approaches stuff.
So, dinner guest, celebrity or historic figure, who would you have over?
How many guests?
Just one guest. You get to pick anybody, like a celebrity or historic figure. So anybody in history. It's a big group.
That's a really big group. I'd maybe go like, I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a really, really, really tough one. I'm gonna go with Jim Morrison.
Okay.
I'm gonna go.
Nice.
I like listen to the Doors so much during college and stuff like that. He's an interesting guy. I think he'd probably be fun at dinner, and he's a pretty interesting intellectual guy. So I think that, but I don't know. It's a really. There's a lot of people that would probably I could think about filling that seat.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, Mark, this has been very informative, and always really appreciate seeing you and talking to you. And thank you for taking the time to come on our podcast, which we probably wouldn't have a podcast if it wasn't for people like you and Gary and stuff like that. So it's very cool to see you, my man.
Yeah, no, this was a blast. It's always great to be able to catch up. I need to get myself to Chicago one of these days.
Yes, one of these days.
Over. I trust me. That's on the list.
Most definitely. We're not far from O'Hare, so if you ever are in O'Hare, just know you're like 7 minutes from our place.
Oh, that's good to know. That's definitely,
yeah.
I got, it's funny. I got stuck in O'Hare in March, and I really should have taken advantage of that.
Oh man. All right, Mark. Thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.